So in order to generate our low poly base mesh object, we're going to backtrack in our iterations to the point where all of these objects were subdivided, and to the point that we had created morph targets for them. Because when an object subdivides, when you backtrack through its subdivision levels, it inherits the smoothing that goes on, so it doesn't retain the same exact volume, and that's why those morph targets were created. So we're going to pull these down to their base subdivision level, but they need to have those morph targets intact so that they hold the contours up, because we want these contours to be as close as possible to our Boolean high poly version that we just created. So the first thing that I would like to do, I found the project that I have that has all of these intact as individual objects, individual parts. I've also got some of the Boolean forms in here. We've got it with the pins added. And each of these have a morph target saved. You're not going to find that at the highest subdivision level. You'll find it at the base subdivision level. So let's go back in and go to our subtool master and use the low res vis. It sets the visible subtools to their lowest subdivision level. Which sets all of these to their lowest subdivision level. So now you can go back through these and go down to your morph target menu, and if this is active, that means you're in good shape. That means that the subtool that you have selected has a morph target saved. So let's go ahead and check our other subtools. So there it is, and the morph target's held up, so the contours are pretty consistent. So I'm also going to bring back this little pin at the top, and I'm also going to make visible the insert meshes. As a side note, if you wanted to recreate your insert mesh brush with a very simple cylindrical form, and in this case it only has 4 points running along the barrel of the cylinder, 1, 2, and then 3, 4 in the back, and it only has 12 sides, 3 per every 90 degrees. You could go ahead and add this. We're going to simply recreate polygonal pipes in Maya and quickly restage them to replace those base pins. So if you haven't already, set those to visible, go to your Z plugin, make sure that all of those are set to their lowest possible subdivision. We can go to Z plugin and merge the visible subtools down. Preserve the existing polygroups. Shift, make everything invisible, scroll down to the bottom, and then just make this visible, select it. So now we have something that is all of this merged together. So go ahead and save this out as a Z tool. I'm going to uncrease all the polygroups, don't really need creases on there anymore. And if you wanted to go in with the Z modeler and do a little bit of refinement to this, you may. It's going to be fairly straightforward. We're going to be removing information more than we're adding information. This is also something you can do in Maya, but it's very easy to do with the Z modeler. You can select it, and the first place I'm looking, go under Transform, activate Radial Symmetry, and Y, bring the count down to 4, is to remove some of the extra edge loops that were inserted in these struts or ribs. Make sure spacebar, delete, edge loop complete, and it's not going to create any additional polygroups, but we can just go through there. If you need to isolate subtools, you may, but it should be easy enough to just go through, get your camera aligned, and just take out the extra edge loops. Because we want edge loops where there's going to be a transition. I'm going to keep one right there because there's going to be a Boolean at that point. It's not as important here. Just where there are form transitions, gets those cleaned up a little bit before we have to take this into Maya. Can go ahead and do the same thing up in here. We can take symmetry off for this. There'll be plenty to delete out of this one as well. And you can even backtrack to when it was at a lower subdivision than this and just take out some of these edge loops that were created by subdivision. Take any of these extra edge loops out that aren't really helping with the form. We'll keep the ones that we need. When it comes to more complicated things like this cylinder, I'm not going to really worry too much about the horizontal ones. I can get to those in Maya, or I can just remodel it, but I am going to take out these ones that run along the barrel. So after you've saved out a version of the Z tool with the individual parts as well as the merge part, just go ahead and make the merge subtool visible. Go under your Z plugin and select delete invisible subtools, and it'll give you a warning saying that it cannot be undone. Hit OK. And again, make sure that you have a previous version saved. For now, this is going to act as the low poly base version we bring into Maya. So I'm going to save this out as another Z tool. Not saving Z projects, but I'm also going to export this as an OBJ. I'm then going to load in the decimation work that we did. And this isn't going to act as what we bake to as much as what we're just using for topology, just for the ease of use in Maya. And I'm going to take this lowest one that is 270,000 points for me, and I'm going to delete all the other subtools. And then I'm going to export this just with the same file name. We can call them high and low in just a second. So we've got the one that we decimated, which is going to be our high, and then the low poly work, which will be our low. So now we can import our high and low OBJs into Maya.